Welcome back, everyone. It is April 14th. I am here with my colleague Brian.
How you doing, everybody? David, how you doing, man?
Um, Better today, but yeah, I mean, most days really up and down. I kind of wanted to focus today on, me deciding to go back to therapy and kind of the decision why that was made and what I'm looking to get out of it. So we'll talk about that. A little bit of stuff around the house. It's getting to be pretty close to starting the garden season. So me and Brian will give you updates on kind of our plans on trying to grow things locally and ways that we've gotten around having to spend however much money on eggs recently. Um,
Yeah, I know. I thought it was just like a regional thing. I'll just speak on this for a second. I thought it was like a regional thing, just because like our state in Michigan just recently passed like I don't know if it's legislation or whatever you want to call it for that all eggs have to technically be cage free, but apparently there's like a lot more states that did that. Um, so yeah, we can talk about egg prices and just the rise of costs in general. So happy to get into it.
sure. Yeah, I did see there's a chronic wasting disease that has been affecting deer around in the United States for a while, and a lot of the a lot of the wildlife conservatists were kind of against allowing these deer to congregate. Yellowstone, I forget exactly. There was some company or some interest group that was having them in pretty close proximity, and they're thinking that might give rise to why they were getting sick. And I learned about prions, which I'm even more scared of prions than I am of fungus now. But
Yep.
uh,
Zombie deer.
yeah, so these prions that can live in the ground for however long off the carcass of a deer that has been zombified due to chronic waste disease, and they can just the prions can just be there. Deer comes up to eat some shrub or something after a deer that died for chronic waste disease after like a few years, and they can get it, and it's becoming more and more of an issue. But there doesn't seem to be any specific cure, and really just like preventative measures for it. I definitely see a lot of deer around in the area that don't have it, luckily, but
Yeah, there's definitely been, especially in like southeast Michigan, there's definitely been an influx of deer. Like I think they estimate somewhere between 230,000 and I think right around a quarter million deer, or maybe it's 25,000 deer. Either way, a large number have just kind of the population in Michigan specifically has kind of just gotten out of uh, control, and they're heading south, kind of more into more populated areas, just for food source and obviously stay away from predators. Um, a lot of people think deer are cute and uh, you know this wonderful animal. Maybe it's biased from growing up with Bambi, but deer eat anything and everything that they can get. Like if you look at your trees outside or just bushes, and like the bottom, 2 or 3 feet are just chewed out, that's deer. They get into crops and all sorts of things. Not to badmouth deer, but if this disease kind of becomes more prevalent in their ranks in population, it might be a concern. Potentially for the future. So kind of scary stuff to think about, but obviously I'm not trying to start a worldwide panic here. It's just a small percentage of deer are affected by it. Luckily for us, we're I haven't seen any or come across any.
yeah, the golf course I went and played, what was it, Thursday, and it was like 40 degrees outside, and I had the whole golf course to myself. And walking around looking for a ball in the woods, I look behind me and there's four deer laying down. And
Casually.
like go to the next hole and there's just one deer off to the side. Go to the next hole, I look behind me, there's four deer laying down. I get to the hole after that, look to my right, and there's two packs of four deer just along the fairway. So around the like rivers, like the Rouge River that we have down here, and there's a few like vacant lots that are still wooded that you can see them in and have them run across. And even in my neighborhood, because the guy behind me feeds the birds, but it also feeds the rats, it feeds the squirrels, it feeds the skunks, it feeds the deer. So when unfortunately we don't have dogs here anymore, but yeah, late at night, sometimes you'd hear them bark, or they want to go outside and come like crying to you. So you go and let them outside, and then you hear a deer crash into the fence as it's jumping over it.
Yeah.
And they are pests. They are, like you had said, they've eaten a ton of my mom's plants that she had around the house, like the outskirts of the house, like just on the outside of it. And the one thing I think with regards to hunting is that if you are, there's people that say, like, I only eat what I kill. So somebody that might be a vegan or vegetarian, but is also a hunter, just because we're trying to control and curb that population. Because, yeah, what happens with, which probably I think happened with COVID, it's kind of just like the downtrodden effects of that, where there wasn't as many cars on the road and they were free to roam a little bit further. But yeah, we really have to get the population down. So if you are a hunter, I think it's, most ethical way, something that's lived in nature and existed in nature. And it's just, just happenstance that you're the one to put them down instead of a chicken or a cow that's basically just raised for slaughter from the beginning. Yeah, at least with deer, I know there's a lot of hunters that I've talked to and come across that some won't use a high powered rifle. They will use like a black powder one, or they'll use a bow and arrow just to like make sure that they're giving the animal enough of a chance. But yeah, I've never really liked hunting that much, but I'm not going to shoot a deer in my backyard, but it might be, worth planning going, opening day or somewhere close to it this year to try to help curb the population.
Yeah. Uh, I know that hunters. I'm I'm not a hunter. I take the stance that the comedian Ron White did of I don't want to get up early. I don't want to go out where it's cold. Like, just not me. Plus, I don't. I'll be honest. I don't really like the taste of deer meat. Like, I don't like venison at all. Like, I know that it's gamey or gamey, however you say it, and it can technically be healthier of sorts, but uh, you also have to take cooking precautions with game meat like that. So, anyway, getting away from my point, I know that because my brother is a very avid hunter. I know that he prefers to hunt deer with a bow and arrow, same along the same lines of what you're saying. Like, you hit it right in between the shoulder, or right just past the shoulder, hit it right in the lungs. It'll give the deer the least amount of pain. Um, and also give you the least amount of damage to like your carcass when you go to to take it to a deer processor and get all the meat from it. um I know that the state of Michigan has granting certain extra what's the term, like extra deer licenses outside of like normal season, just because they understand that the population has grown a little bit more significantly over the years, and that I I don't know if it's like nature is healing, quote unquote, but just in Michigan in general, I know that they've spotted like black bears closer to like the lower peninsula is like the first time that they've been seen. I don't know how they get across from where they're coming from exactly. It makes me wonder if they're like crossing the Mackinac Bridge or something, something hilarious like that. But mostly wildlife like that is normally in the Upper Peninsula. Um, but bears, and I think they just spotted a cougar and a wolverine, or I think they're hoping wolverines in the UP. So I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is there seems to be a significant amount of animal population that's moving like south from where their grounds are, at least here in Michigan. So just curious about that, if it's kind of becoming a trend for all species, because also somebody shot a gray wolf near Grand Rapids like 7 months ago. It was like national news. It's the first time that they'd ever seen them in the Lower Peninsula since like the 1800s or something. So I'm not
Yeah,
gonna
that's
say I'm gonna.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm not gonna say I'm gonna keep track of this for you like I'm like some newsman, but it is something to kind of keep in the back of everyone's head. Um, Maybe it's weather change or climate change, whatever the case is, but animal migrations are sometimes usually an indication of that. So, yeah,
Yeah, it could be a myriad of factors. I know during COVID, they were spotting whales where they've never seen whales before, or dolphins in ports, and how close that they had come. And yeah, bears. I've seen black bears around, kind of the middle of the Lower Peninsula. They are more prevalent in the UP, but definitely around more in kind of the Lower Peninsula, which I guess is a little bit more urban in some areas than the UP can be, but it is mostly wooded. So it's strange
yeah,
that the population down here isn't as large as it is up there in the UP. But you're right about the cougars thing. I was actually looking that up today, and Canada lynxes, bobcats, cougars, a lot of good wildlife in and around the area. But yeah, I mean, the problem with the deer is that they can starve. There's nothing keeping them from breeding constantly. And yeah, it's all fun to. I was taking a walk the other day and seen somebody that had apples and carrots out on the side of their lawn. Yeah, that's cool. You want to feed these deer and whatnot, but people that hit them with a car and whatever, the ones that end up just starving to death. It sucks. So, but I do know with Michigan growing up, it was like, oh, you never shoot doe. You never shoot doe. You only ever shoot bucks. So that could also be a part of it too, with the doe population that has gotten large enough, and it's not like a buck is going to uh, stop mating. Uh, it doesn't mate for life or whatever. So that can definitely be another factor in it as well. So yeah, hopefully it gets to a point where it's more balanced again. I don't mind seeing deer around, but
yeah. I mean, I live 20 minutes north of Detroit, like, and Michigan is kind of like, I guess, like Illinois in a way, where it's like kind of built around like Illinois is kind of like built around Chicago, right? It's like kind of just like this webbing effect. Like Michigan and at least the Lower Peninsula is kind of that same way. It's kind of, it seems like it's built around like um, Detroit, Flint, Lansing, and like Grand Rapids. Kind of like that webbing suburban area. Um, so I mean, I know I live like close to like Southfield and Redford. That's a little bit like kind of wooder woodsier area, but like my direct there's literally nothing, there's no forest around me. There's like, obviously we have a number of trees, but I wouldn't constitute it as like a forest. It's like a park is like the biggest thing that would have trees, but it's nothing to like, you know I would say to call a herd of deer. But I think there's pictures every day of different deer around Metro Detroit, which is, it's just crazy to me that they're just like running down the street like it's like a zombie apocalypse, right? Like it's like it's like fucking I Am Legend, where the street is just quiet and you just see a deer shoot down, fucking Woodward or something. So,
yeah,
um, so yeah, it's definitely interesting, and um, which makes me cautious because my wife and I are planning on, we just went to Eastern Market, which is this huge kind of farmers market, if you will, down in Detroit, and we got, flowers and seeds and all these other things, because we're going to start, which kind of brings us to our maybe another topic of, we're kind of trying to become self-sustainable, like um Americans used to be before, the overprocessing of food and just gluttonous kind of production that we've used to, just with the rising food costs and all these tariffs and this trade war and all this. So, I have a family that I have to look after, and when I can't just go to the grocery store and my $100 used to buy me like, a whole plethora of groceries. Now it buys like four things. We have to find a way to cut costs. And the way that we do that, and we can do, is we had right, raised garden beds, and we're growing plants. We're growing tomatoes, cucumbers. Um, Fuck, I can name a whole list, like a whole salad. um, that we're trying to grow this season, and it makes me scared with these deer that if they get into, like we're talking about earlier, of getting into our crop, quote unquote, that we just kind of blew money on all of that. So
Right. Yeah, we have to, like, talking about neighbor that feeds the birds, we're going to have to put up some sort of fencing and bird netting around anyways, just to try to circumvent that whole issue. And yeah, you're right. I'm trying to get a little bit more self sufficient on things because rising egg prices, rising prices just at the grocery store in general, and the produce quality has just gotten so bad. I can't buy a bag of apples because even this bag of apples now is going to cost me twice as much as it did 5 years ago, but it's also only going to last like a third of what I normally would be able to get them for because there's always a apple in there that rots before anything else. And yeah, it's just, it sucks. And even putting things in the fridge, it's just, it takes longer to get up here from, Mexico or coming from Canada. Or I know apples are usually stored for like a year in some places after they've been waxed. But you go to Kroger and you'll see a bag of apples with an apple rotting in it. Like, how
yeah,
are you, where are you supposed to go to get good produce around in the area? And these are organic. So those were the other part of it too, is looking at, what's the logic on getting apple trees? And I mean, the logic's relatively sound, but you need at least two of them so that they can uh, germinate or the pollinate between the two of them.
yeah, cross pollinate. Yep.
Right. The same thing with the deer. They'll eat the buds, they'll eat the branches, they'll eat whatever. Right. Like the fucking the hostas my mom has, they're
Yeah.
gone. All of it is gone.
Right. Yeah, and it's not. I mean, especially apple trees. Those take years. I mean, I think at least 5 years, and that's if you got the right cross, is it germination, pollen, whatever the term is, um, you got the right combination of trees. It still takes 5 to 10 years just to for you to be able to get you know a good crop of apples, or a steady flow of them anyway. And I mean, that's the same thing with gardening, right? Like, it's not like you plant tomatoes, you have to, have the right soil. You have to put them like so they wrap around vines because tomato plants get kind of crazy when they grow. And, that's not all instantaneous. So that takes time. And then if you have a critter or a deer that's chewing on them, like that's just, on top of money wasted, that's time spent and energy wasted, all because of you know a pest, right? So uh but you have to kind of invest in the quote unquote security. Now I'm not saying go and get a fucking 357 Magnum, but you gotta, like you were talking about, putting like fencing or some type of safeguard. Like, you don't want to put pesticides on them. Like, we'd just be back in the square one of buying from the grocery store. So um yeah, it can definitely be frustrating, but if you're do the research and you're smart, careful about it, and smart about it, then you can make yourself sustainable for 6 months, at minimum. And
Yeah.
obviously, all that stuff, depending on the plant, can kind of grow back next year, especially with herbs and things like that.
Yeah, you have the perennial plants, and we're looking at doing at least a blackberry bush, but probably blackberry and raspberry, since my mom doesn't like blueberries and my sister's allergic to them anyways. But yeah, if you want, you can get I'm looking at greenhouses right here for $350, $250, just from Home Depot, which I'm sure you can get it cheaper on Temu or some other place. But even with that, or if you want to start some sort of grow op in your basement, say if you had some
Yeah, there you
sort
go.
of salsa business, you would have your tomatoes and your onions and your cilantro and whatever else that you wanted in there, just grown down. Because yeah, in Michigan we have to wait until I think at least May 12th is the last day for frost before you can start planting things. But yeah, we're planning on a lot of different stuff: banana peppers, pickling cucumbers. I want to get like some things canned. And I think the banana peppers and the pickled cucumbers would be good for more of a fermented type of pickle rather than, because the pickles that we have now are mostly just vinegar, right? They're not
Yep.
fermented in a way that makes things better for your gut in any sense. They are good for hydration sometimes because of the salt and vinegar and the
Right.
juice. A lot of people use them for hangover cures or cramping cures or what have you. But yeah, I mean, there's no one way to do it. And it's something else just to kind of look forward to and to feel good about yourself to be able to grow these things. I know you had mentioned getting farm fresh eggs from somebody at work. I do know somebody else that also has 8 chickens. And yeah, if you're able to get in contact with somebody in and around your area that has chickens, they've probably got more than enough eggs for you. So that's another way, or farmers markets.
Yeah. So my particular city is weird. They only hand out 5 like licenses for to have chickens like in the city per year. And they only allow 3 hens. So I guess the caveat for people who don't know is that like places like tractor or yeah, Tractor Supply or
Tractor
farm,
Supply, yeah.
yeah, they hand out 4 at a time. So and most municipalities who do allow chickens don't have a limit like per household that can like within the city. I mean, I my city is 2 square miles, right? Like it's very small, but we're obviously surrounded by other bigger cities. But also with that being said, like it's there's been a push by a lot of citizens to do away with that just because yeah, like the cost of eggs is absurd. I mean, I went into my local grocery store and I was seeing like $5 or $6 for a dozen. It's kind of come down now. I think it's like 450, but still that's absurd. And I mean, I haven't done the cost of what 4 hens was, but again, it's kind of one of those things of like I was talking about with gardening is that even if you invest, obviously the resources and the money to get these hens, like they're still going to take time to be able to produce those eggs. Um, I think it's like a year, 18 months. Well, first off, you have to keep them inside. I think it's like the first 6 months of their existence until they grow feathers. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's 6 months to a year. They have to grow their feathers so they can stay out in colder climates. And then there's another short amount of time before they actually start laying eggs. Now, once they get going, they're fucking 7 to 12 eggs a day. That's up to what, like 5 dozen per week. That's a lot of eggs. Long story short, or what I'm kind of long-winded of saying is that, yeah, find somebody or do it yourself of getting farm fresh eggs. First off, the eggs are way better for you than anything you can buy in the grocery store because they bleach the eggs to make them white, which kills the lifespan of them. I mean, with farm fresh eggs, I think you can leave them on the counter without being refrigerated for 3 weeks or 3 months. It's something absurdly long. Um, and then you can put them in the fridge, so they last longer than anything that you would buy in the store anyway. Um, and that would just lead to also just better health benefits too because they're not over processed.
Yeah. But it comes down to with these one of the things that I was thinking about recently, especially with the habit changes, trying to make of the balance that comes with it. So it is generally a good idea to have your own chickens, but that's added responsibility. You know, they're dirty, they are somewhat high maintenance. Like you have to make sure you feed them however many times a day. You have to be checking the coop for eggs, otherwise they'll roost and think that they are going to hatch when they're not going to, and it's kind of a pain to try to get rid of them. So that's like offering that option of if you can get in contact with somebody that has chickens, that they're probably producing more than enough eggs than what they actually need. But I guess
Yep.
it might not be a bad idea if you do get chickens just to try to get in contact with local restaurants or breakfast places or something to see if they'd be interested in having them. But I know there are a lot of laws and regulations around it, so maybe that wouldn't be a possibility. But if you do, you can always look out and see for people if they need eggs. And I know the biggest problem with the egg shortage that had happened is bakeries and other businesses that rely on those eggs that got hit hard because of it, and they have to transfer that cost to the consumer.
Yeah, my wife is. Well, I know there's a local cookie company, Detroit Cookie Company. You can look them up on their social media. They were on channel 7, so the local ABC News. She's like, we buy I think like 12,000 eggs per month just to fill, or it was a week or a month. Either way, because obviously their primary business is cookies, and what you need for cookies, uh, majority of cookies, obviously with like health concerns and or lifestyle change, like vegan, um, the primary ingredient or one of them is eggs. So if you're going through 12,000 eggs in a month, and even at wholesale cost of $354, that's a lot of fucking money. So um, yeah, that's one thing you want to. A great business venture would be to have your own farm system going to be able to supply to these local restaurants. Or I don't want to pretend that I know the laws around that or anything like that. But I mean, if being self-sustainable is one thing, but if you could turn it into a moneymaker, go for it. I know there's with that cage-free thing. I know there are a little bit more restrictions on that type of stuff, but yeah, you're absolutely right. It's another way to kind of think about this too. Um, especially if you're going to invest in chicken coops and feed, and obviously the space that it would take to do that. So um, like my wife is she spends, gosh, like $100 on eggs probably every other week, just for her regular orders. um so it went from getting, I think it was like 9 dozen or something, to, or she was ordering that like every week. Now she can only afford to do that um like every 2 weeks or every 3 weeks. It's just like it's just hasn't affected her business much, but it's kind of to the point where she has to start raising her prices temporarily. And even if they do, she's gonna lower prices. So it not only affects just us as individuals, but it's also affecting business and just causing these prices to rise. And I think as a nation or just as individuals, we need to become more self-sustainable, not relying on bigger corporations to feed us, especially when it's just feeding us garbage. And like you said earlier, it's just the quality of food has just gotten way worse. Like you talked about apples, but I just bought an 8 pack of avocados, and 5 of them are rotten. I mean, there wasn't a way to really test the ripeness of them, in store. It's not like I can just like slice them open and find out. So it sucks, but we're at this point where we have to kind of look out for ourselves in that way.
Well, you can't trust you can't trust that the food that's supposed to be better for you is going to last as long as it used to, and it costs more. And trying to do something about it and trying to be more self sufficient is good. And I can't wait for the article titles if the chicken thing takes off and a lot of people do it well. The article titles in a few years, like egg companies sad having to put down a ton of chickens because no one wants eggs anymore, like blaming the
Yeah.
consumer for the fact that no one's buying, or we're not buying as many eggs as we used to. But
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, who would have thought that having some viral illness go through an entire flock of chickens that are probably just have enough space for like themselves in an area in these large warehouses, because technically they're cage free, but they'll pack 1,000 of them in a 10 foot by 10 foot area, or whatever. It's probably something ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, who knew that was going to be an issue? So we might have looking at different regulations going forward if you can get two or three chickens, and if people are able to keep them around and feed them right. But then what's going to happen to the chicken feed industry? They're going to try to make more money, and the feed that you're giving your chickens isn't going to be as good. And chickens are kind of high maintenance as they are too.
Oh
Like need to
yeah.
be fed, and if anything goes wrong with them, you can't really take them to a vet or something. So it comes down. Well, I guess you could, but I don't really know vets that know too much about chickens. Maybe if you're out in like farm country, there'd be more of them. But
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure I know that vets are kind of like a generalist when it comes to pet health, so maybe that's a new type of category that they have to specialize in if this becomes a thing. I also feel like I also feel like currently like it's gonna with just how rare eggs not rare like how bad the egg situation is in some parts of the country. It's gonna be like fucking drug dealing where it's like one person's buying from another and they're just flipping it to another person for more, and it's like I don't know, it's gonna get to that point where they're flipping eggs and the quality of just like homegrown eggs becomes, a whole thing. But that's, just my ADHD kind of branching out to thought that really doesn't matter to the current situation. So,
yeah, we we found a Glock 19 in my son's egg that he bought from a farmer.
yeah, he found a needle in his egg. Like, what?
Yeah, but okay. Yeah. Anyways, to wrap that up, just trying to find ways to be more self sustainable. But when it comes to it, it's going to take more time out of your day to make sure that these things go right. And the only way
Yep.
you're ever going to figure it out is if you try it, and if it works, then scale it up more. I have friends that have chickens, they have rabbits, they have probably 12 garden beds throughout their property. So it just comes down to it. And yeah, try to find something, even if it's maybe not gardening, but seeking out people that have farm fresh eggs or that have their own garden and are selling things at farmers markets or what have you. Just
Yeah.
try to get off of the fucking teats of big Kroger and Meyer and Walmart. And to your point too, maybe some of the fruits and vegetables that we've come to know and love that aren't very native around here and take a long time to ship to us, maybe we're gonna have to start moving away from that a little bit. Fortunately, because I do love me some pineapple, do love me some avocado, some bananas, oranges, all that stuff. But
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be completely upset if like I need to start growing my own avocado because one, I think the biggest supplier of avocados is Mexican drug cartels because I know they were spending their money on that to legitimize or what do you call it, wash their money, um, and also kind of just invest in something of way to smuggle drugs into the country. So, truck up one for the good guys if you do start investing in making or growing something like an avocado. Um, you know, you don't need your DEA badge or whatever for that, and you're taking one out of the drug cartel's pockets. So
Yeah, if we can just get rid of them altogether, I think everyone would be a lot happier. There's not anything that I ever heard of them doing good for the community in any sense.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, they spend their money on lavishing things and, you know, gold machine guns. Things that don't necessarily help society. So there, if the theme of our episode is pests, that's maybe another one to look into next. Um, after the deer population, but David, I know that you had wanted to talk about something that's been very important and on your mind recently, and that was mental health.
Yeah, thank you for that introduction, Brian. Mental health's always on my mind. It's one of the biggest issues for me. I know it's an issue for a lot of people, especially post COVID and kind of the generation millennials that are dealing with not being able to afford houses or being out of work or being underpaid at their jobs. And kind of one of the biggest things for me was, you try to make steps and you try to plan out, I'm going to do this, and then I can work on some of these other things. And the one thing I wanted to do first was to get a new job, a job that paid me better, and also one where I was in the office more because I was looking for more structure and currently working remote and going in about a half day a week. But I get a lot of stuff done in the office. The problem is they don't pay me enough, and my commute's about an hour, so I don't want to go in as often and actually be productive because they don't want to pay me more money, but they still want me to do more before they do pay me more money. And I'm just kind of sick of having to deal with that. And there have been other things. I've kind of been on a steep slope down with a lot of the healthier habits that I had established. I was going to the gym for a while, then got sick, fell out of that, trying to eat healthier, not have as much fast food, which has gone relatively okay. Uh, the drinking problem that hasn't really gotten better, even with trying to cut down. And I decided to go back to therapy. I've been on and off for however many years since I was 16. So, 13, almost 14 years now. And trying to find somebody that kind of keeps me accountable and wants me to work more towards my goals and gives me steps to kind of get where I'm going. So the goals that we talked about this week were trying to get to the gym 3 or 4 times a week and journaling and being more present about how I'm feeling that day, whether I'm more motivated, less motivated, and kind of down to the whole line of just motivation in general and kind of how you're feeling on any specific day. Because I think with me and what we had talked about before is the balance with me tracking my food, which was something else that I wanted to start doing. And I came to about 3,000 calories on Thursday. So I didn't track it for since then. But it's easier for me to get prepackaged food because it has a barcode scanner. So you can scan the barcode and, see how much you're actually eating. But it's a little bit harder when you eat a sandwich or something because do I know this is as much mayo as I'm putting in there? No. Do I know this is as much turkey as I'm using? No. I know 2 slices of bread, that's easy enough, but it's not as good as going and buying chicken in bulk or broccoli and rice in bulk and weighing those out and putting meals together and knowing that I pull it out of the fridge, I eat the whole thing with a little bit of hot sauce. That's what I'm getting. Whereas it is a lot easier to not have to cook and clean and measure and weigh and part out all of those things if I can just scan a barcode that tells me a Snickers bar is like 300 calories. So that's kind of where I ended up with that. But it's, just started last week and seeing my therapist again this Wednesday and talk about goal progress and everything. And today, put the other of the two raised gardens together, went and leveled out the ground a little bit so they would sit more flush into the ground. I was working on doing laundry and I planned on going to the gym, but the exercise I got from digging up the dirt in the backyard and the walk I took today, I think should cover me until I go tomorrow. But yeah, other parts of it, like trying to get up earlier, which I did today. So progress in certain things is going to going better. And I was looking up today of supplements to kind of help with motivation and potentially ADHD issues, which I think I might have, but I have to go down the whole diagnostic rabbit hole with that. And United Health announced that they're not no longer carrying Adderall. So even if I
What?
wanted to
I didn't
have,
hear that.
yeah, they're not covering Adderall anymore. So even if I wanted to have some sort of medical intervention, I know Adderall and Vyvanse are the two big like stimulator parts of it. You can get things that are like non-stimulating, but I wanted to do kind of some lifestyle changes, some supplemental changes, and try to help me out in that regard, and sleep schedule and things of that nature. But yeah, I kind of made that decision, and it had gotten to a point where it wasn't really sustainable, and I just continued to get worse and falling down a path. And I don't know what it is with me, but the the time it takes me to start a good habit and me reverting back to just doing what I always did. Um, I mean, it happens so often that I've rubber band back and forth. So I'd like to get some structure, some stability, and at least look at something like, oh, I didn't eat that great this week, but I did go to the gym every day that I was supposed to, or I didn't go to the gym this week, but I have been eating better and I have been more productive throughout the day doing things like more physical. So that's where I'm starting out at. But again, if it if you think you need it in any sense of the word, I definitely recommend it, especially if you haven't done it before and you feel stuck. And obviously, if you have the financial means of doing so, then yeah, I do find it pretty helpful. And if you don't have the money, I'm sure like there's some support groups or um, some subreddits of people that are kind of dealing with the same thing. Obviously, you're very unique in your situations and that, but I think a lot of us could have depression or anxiety or ADHD and trying to find ways to cope and deal with it. I mean, it's all trial and error, anyways.
Yeah. Well, first off, David, good job on recognizing that you needed to get help and that you did that. It's braver than you think it is. I can already tell from your voice just this episode, and I know it's been a couple of weeks since we've kind of talked or seen each other, but I can just kind of tell that you seem happier. I mean, I know it's kind of a monotone dude, but I can kind of hear a little pep in your step and your voice. So it maybe it's just from doing the right thing for yourself, or whatever the case is. But yeah, getting especially mental help is never easy. I mean, I know I talked about I was going to kill myself last year, and kind of overcame that. Um, and it wasn't easy. I didn't have health insurance at the time to be able to afford therapy. My therapist was in and out of the office because she was pregnant and gave birth. So there was like a whole cavalcade of things that I was going through. I mean, I've talked about them for 12 or 13 episodes now, so I don't really need to rehash them. But uh, yeah, it's if there's one thing I'm a proponent of, it's getting help. Mental health is very important. It's at the core of what we do for our health. If you got a brain that's on our side, it means we can do great things, better things, make clearer decisions. Um, so yeah, I mean, sometimes even if you just feel stuck, and in 2022, 50% of all adult age people in the United States were treated for some sort of mental health treatment, whether that was depression, anxiety, or the whole list of things. Um, so it's kind of a silent pandemic, epidemic, whatever the actual term is, in this country, and I think that people need to take it more seriously.
Of course.
Yeah, I obviously the cost it's cost prohibitive in this country for whatever reason. I know that. the United States ranks highest in confidence levels for teenagers, but it also ranks the highest, some of the highest amongst depression and anxiety. So I guess with that confidence comes the fall mentally sometimes. So, um, you know, being aware of how you're feeling is not an easy task. It kind of takes strength in and of itself to be reflective, self reflective, and to seek out help. So, again, I think you're on the right path for that. And I hope it served you and everything that I hope you get what you want out of it. And I just recommend you to put what you want into it so you get that back.
Right. It's the same thing of what we're talking about with gardening or having chickens or friendships or healthy changes that you're trying to make. It comes down to context and what you put into it and how far you're willing to go with it. And it's kind of the same conversation that I had the other day with playing Dungeons and Dragons. Like you can, it's not hard to join a campaign, but it is harder to allow yourself to think creatively and come up with ideas and have these conversations, and you just kind of be a little bit more free. It's easy to kind of, sit in the back and let these things happen, and wait till somebody asks you a question or you're in combat and it's your turn or what have you. But yeah, therapy is, it's trying to work with you and you try not to work against it. And yeah, mental health for, I think, teenagers and that, it makes a lot of sense. Growing up, you had, the whole world in front of you. And for whatever reason, our generation's parents, thought we were all special and that we were going to go on and do great things. But the issue that I have, and I think an issue that a lot of people have, is it comes down to jobs are really made for other people to determine your worth, whether or not you're hireable, whether or not you're promotable, whether or not you deserve more money. And I think the big issue, and that's like a very big uh, variable outside of what we feel about ourselves, how our friends feel about us, or family, or anything else. So yeah, the other part is my hope is that we start to branch out and more startups come and there's more competition for kind of the big players in a lot of different industries, and that some of our generation gets out there and creates these companies and is able to hire people and pay them a good amount and coach them, teach them up, and do all of these things. Because I think at the end of the day, there's just, whether it's a generational gap or it's a certain amount of people that have come into power in these industries for so long, but when you have a system that kind of relies on judging you for your ability to have healthcare, to have the money to afford insurance, or to pay back your student loans, or have the money to buy the chicken feed, or gives you a good enough work life balance to be able to feed your chickens or tend to your garden or do all this other stuff. So, yeah, I think a lot of people are, definitely struggling and dealing with these issues. And yeah, if there is not a way that you can do it through therapy if you can't afford it. There's definitely other avenues to kind of try to help you out in some regard. But again, it's all trial and error. If you think it might work, then try it. Because the only thing you're going to find out is the only bad thing you're going to ever find out is that it didn't work for you.
Yeah, it's kind of like mixing, or it's kind of to your point of D&D references. It's kind of like mixing character knowledge with player knowledge, right? So, uh, what you may have perception of that will work, for yourself, if you're that particular character, um, you're not going to be able to be your person. You're not going to be able to see every avenue. So it is going to be, unfortunately, a trial and error basis. But I think the start is to get into some sort of therapy. I mean, there are, you know, low cost, or free, you know, um, resources, like nine. you can text 988, and if you're in crisis, and there's always um, a mental health professional who'll be able to help you. There's also, I think, is it 411? That's the suicide hotline.
I thought wasn't 411 back in the day.
Oh, 411
Um,
was was back in the day.
no, four. I thought, yeah, 411 is directory assistance.
Suicide. Oh, it is 988. Okay, I thought there was two different ones, but so yeah, 988 is the national and or international association for suicide prevention. So there's always going to be someone there if you're in some sort of crisis. Um, the other thing that I know that I have through my work, we have an employee assistance program that the company pays for. This company that kind of be part of a network that they'll either direct you to or be that resource for mental health, financial, and all this other advice. But you have to kind of use your resources that are available to you. First off, you have to understand at least some amount of what you're, kind of experiencing. If you're not feeling great about yourself or your relationship, like start there, and then kind of pivot towards a resource. I mean, I think the average cost of psychiatric care per hour is like $120 or something ridiculous. That's not obviously through a program like BetterHelp or one of those online therapies. I mean, that's which is another great resource, by the way. You can go through any podcast. Hopefully, this one very soon, where you can get a promo link to use that for the first couple months or whatever. But um, if not, I'm almost positive. I haven't looked into this, but I know that some like psychology schools offer some sort of low cost or free like services for people. It's kind of like going to dentist school and getting your teeth cleaned, or having routine dental care at low cost, especially through insurance. So that's also another resource to kind of keep in mind too. So there are a lot of things out there that are low cost. I mean, I think I was at one point where I built an AI chatbot based on this mental health PDF that I built or that I found, and had it read it and then kind of talk me through symptoms and things like that. So I don't recommend talking to Chat GPT specifically, but I know that there are mental health bots out there to use too.
Right. That was one of the things that I was thinking of. So I'll tell you something, but we can't expand on it very much since we're getting close to the end. But I did watch Terminator 2. Well, actually, all the Terminators the last few weeks, and it started because I'm like, there's no way Terminator 2 is the 30th like highest ranked movie of all time. There's no way. And yeah, I watched it and really liked it. But that was kind of the precursor to Skynet and everyone thinking that AI is going to murder us or what have you. But my
Right.
hope is that it does at least create some way for people to find a low cost avenue, and it should help some people. I am a proponent. I really like kind of the doctor patient relationship when it comes to any type of doctor, whether it is psychologist, counselor, or what have you. But I am doing kind of like a telehealth one right now, and I won't tell you. Maybe I already told you, but I probably shouldn't because they don't, we don't do free marketing around here. But maybe I already forgot that rule earlier. But anyways, yeah, here's the hope in that because I do ask I do ask AI some of these questions because really what it's really come down to is it compiles data from 4 or 5 different websites and will give you anecdotal evidence for things that might help you. Say the supplement stuff. It's one of the things that I asked it, and the other part of it too, though, to worry about is it will tell you it can help, but if you ask it to expand on, like, okay, well, what research, like, what do experts say about this? Like, what, how strong is the research for these things working? And a lot of times it's just, I don't know if you would consider it anecdotal, but people's own experiences saying that something helped them or worked for them. And uh, to your point, which you brought up, a lot of good ones with the, helplines for people in crisis and other things available to anyone. Um, with the financial issues right now, I do know there are some rental assistance programs. Obviously, WIC or Bridge, I think here in Michigan, it helps with grocery costs and things of that nature. To just, yeah, I wouldn't be afraid to try these things out, and I wouldn't be ashamed if you do have to do them, because they exist for a reason, and we've kind of always been there, but it definitely has gotten worse for people in the middle class and below to even scrape by at this point. So if there are things available to you that can help you out in some way, it can definitely be, can help give you peace of mind if it's if it's one less thing that you have to worry about. Like the HSA that I have through my work, I finally signed up on it and realized the things that I could buy to help me out. So that's what I'm using for kind of the telehealth therapy that I'm doing, because that's money that exists there for that reason. And the same thing with rental assistance or food assistance and things like that. It exists for that reason. And it's kind of tough sometimes, I think, to realize you need help. But if it's not mental, if it's financial or other things, then um, yeah, that first step, it's not weak, but I think kind of brave to, look and understand that you need help in some of these areas.
Yeah, I could walk anyone kind of through the process of signing up for Bridge, WIC, or EBT cards because I applied for one last year when I was unemployed just because I had no job prospects. My savings was essentially drained after 3 months, and I technically got denied, but my son, um, I think it's called, I think the program's called "Am I Healthy Child?" But he got like dental and health insurance. And then also, I think we got like $200 a month for groceries for him. So, um, never be too proud to accept your situation, um, and use the resources to make your situation even a little bit better. So, um, I've learned humility in the last year. I've kind of consigned myself to maybe a power greater than myself was looking out for me, and that I just needed to kind of accept things for what they were and seek help. So, whether it's religion, actual mental health, professional resources, do yourself a favor and check your ego at the door, and get help if you need it, whatever that is.
All right. And if you're at a good spot mentally and financially, and you have time to do things, definitely look for ways to help people. I donate blood twice a year. I'm looking to sign up to the Humane Society. Kind of humble brags. I'm not the greatest person in the world, but trying to get better and feeling a little bit more accomplished and doing productive things that help out other people or animals, and in that sense of the word. So, yeah, the other side of the spectrum is if you are in a good place and um, feel good about where you're at. It does feel good to give back, and uh, people are struggling as much as you may not realize it, and as much as somebody has been able to cover it up for whatever, friends, family, and things of that nature. Definitely, look to help out when you can, and I think we going forward, the only way we'll be able to get there, and I hope we're able to all get there together, regardless of mental, physical, financial status.
Yeah, I mean, I even think that, the type A, maybe CEO, whatever company owner personalities, I think they even are in need of some sort of tune up every once in a while, or not even a business owner CEO type. It's just the people who put up a good front also just need an occasional tune up, whether it's going to the gym after a long time or just getting into a sauna. There's different mental health in general is just kind of like a caveat of categories that we don't really have time for this episode to get into, but um, whatever you're going through, or just to like even like keep yourself going, just take that extra second to like to do that thing that gets you through. That's not obviously like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. Like, to your point earlier of that dopamine rush, like do it because it will make you just a better person, even if it's just 1%.
Right.
That'll really pay off in the end.
Yeah. And no time for underrated piece of media of the week, but an underrated movie that I did watch that I'd recommend you to watch as well. About Time, which I don't know if you've seen it, but it's
So,
a
so the one with Bill Nye where his son, is it Domhnall
Domhnall
Gleeson?
Gleeson. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah, so it helped me kind of change my perspective on things. And it's not a spoiler because it's shown in the first 5 minutes of the film, but Bill Nighy lets his son Domhnall Gleeson know that the men in the family have the ability to turn back time or like
Yeah.
go like time travel back in time. But it kind of extends throughout. And one of the things that he would recommend doing is just like relive a day over, but from a different perspective. And that he eventually like tailored his mind into kind of looking at the beauty of each day, even if it was something that was a hard day or a bad day, to kind of change his perspective on things. Not the one to say that it's most of what we do is how we react to it and not what's happening to us, because I think that's context matters a lot of the times. But I do think I would be better if I looked at things from a different perspective and being more grateful that I have the ability to have stressful days because I do have a job, or stressful days because I do have somebody that's getting married and I'm in the wedding or whatever, instead of associating that with the habit of drinking or trying to get my try to alter my mind state a little bit to kind of forget the day that I had. So, but I think that pretty much wraps it up on my end. Brian, I didn't know if you had any closing comments.
Uh, no, I did like About Time. It was far better than The Time Traveler's Wife. That movie sucked. Uh, kind of same, kind of same premise, and it had Eric Bana and Rachel McAdams. So you're like, it's a pretty, loaded, leading actor and leading actress, but it's just not great. But yeah, I did enjoy About Time. I think that is something that we can never get back. Time, and it's always going to be uh, especially for me as a parent, is we'll never be able to get back his time. So take the time to cherish your loved ones, cherish yourself, cherish God if you believe in that type of thing. And the time that you have. There's a quote that I always kind of turn to in times. Actually, from Gandalf from Lord of the Rings. Let me just get the exact quote up here. Then we can wrap it up after this. Uh, so all so do all who live to see such times. So that's not for them to decide. All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you. And I think being a parent who had an addiction problem, and I was going through the boot camp, and I missed 6 months out of my son's life, or felt like it. It's time I'll never get back, so it's something that I will have perspective on and use use that quote and use that kind of perspective to just do better and spend my time more wisely with the things that matter. So that's all that I had.
Yeah, that's great perspective. Sometimes experience is just experience. It doesn't have to, or the knowledge is just knowledge. It doesn't have to be necessarily good. It doesn't have to be necessarily bad, but just kind of it teaches. It has the ability to teach. Then I don't know if you can necessarily call something bad because you're still here, right?
Yeah. Um,
All right. I think that's just about it. I know you wanted to get off here soon, so unless you have anything else, Brian, I think we can.
nope, I don't have anything else. I felt this was a great episode, so I will let's end it on a great note and bye, everybody.
Yep. Goodbye, and we'll see you here soon.